Design shapes the way you live. I'm Nico, an interior design expert focused on the connection between home and well-being. Using science, design, and professional expertise, I'll help you shape a space that elevates your mindset and enhances your well-being. Let's create space for better living, starting now. Ever wonder why some people swear by two duvets, sleep with the window open all year round, or ditch the bed frame altogether? In this first episode of my new series, Home by Country, we're heading into the bedroom, literally. We're exploring how different cultures approach sleep, from the tactile luxury of French linens to the minimalistic rituals of Japan. You'll learn how bed styling and nighttime rituals differ around the world and what you can borrow to create your most restful space yet. Whether you're struggling with sleep quality or simply curious about how to make your bedroom feel better, this episode blends design, science, and soul to help you rethink how you rest. So I really wanted to explore how people around the world make their beds and what we can learn from one another to improve sleep, wellness, and overall design. Because different countries and different cultures have their way of doing things. And I find it interesting, and some of them, which we'll chat about today, are good for us. They're really good things for us to consider, implement. And I know myself, after researching this, there are for sure some things that I am going to tweak in my bedtime rituals and routines, and even how I create my space. If we look back, let's look back hundreds of years ago. Beds really signified where people were in their stage of life. You know, whether they had money, whether they were poor, beds were really a sign of luxury and opulence. So if there was a bed that was adorned with prints and silks and pillows and lots of mattresses, then that signified to people that you had money. If you had a plush, lovely bed, you were well off. On the other hand, beds were also a sign of poverty, because if your mattress was made up of straw on the floor with just a blanket made of wool or animal skin, it really showed where you were at, your status. So yeah, if you were well off, you would have had many sheets, lots of pillows, you would have had pillowcases, and many mattresses. And the top few mattresses were often made of feather and down. And so instead of having like a duvet, one would just literally crawl under the top mattress, and that would act as a duvet. And I'm sure you've seen the old photos where there was curtains or canopy made of lots of fabrics and pattern around the 17th and 18th century, where beds had curtains on them. And the reason for this was that people at that time didn't always have a bedroom, a private bedroom. Where they slept was sometimes in a bit more of like a public feeling. There may have been others that shared the room with them, or just not in a fully enclosed private room with a door kind of thing. So these curtains were often used for privacy, and they were also used to help keep them warm, because, in old castles and all of that, there was drafts. The ventilation wasn't nearly as good as what we have today. So the place was cold, it was damp, it was drafty. So they were really used for practical reasons as well as for opulence and for look and style. But today, we still see curtains on some beds, but it's typically in more of like that traditional design style. And it's definitely more for the look and not so much because, they need to keep warm at night. But one of the things that seemed to happen no matter what status a person was, people would use lavender to scent their mattresses to help them with sleep, and also to ward off any little critters. They also would use them if their mattresses smelt musky and old. So they would utilize lavender and different scents to help them. And when we think about it today, how we are all really into bedtime routines and how our beds look, what we do right before bed, and how we set set things up. Like these bedtime routines weren't really a thing a long time ago because bedtime rituals weren't aesthetic. They weren't connected to really how the space looked right before bed. They were more practical and task orientated. So people at bedtime, their routines might be something a little bit more like praying or washing and brushing their hair, reading, if of course they had adequate light to do that. Perhaps they were reading by candlelight. But then it started to become more popular with the rise of sort of like the wellness culture and of course social media. Right. So today, our routines and our rituals and all of the things are so much more prevalent than they ever have been. And I think, we've all seen those bedtime routines, right? It's like, somebody washing their face at night and the things that they like to do at bed and how they like to set it up and blah, 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 right? We've seen the million videos. And I think it's great. I think that, how people want to embrace having a moment before bed and really looking to that space as a way to impact their day and set themselves up for a good sleep. So I think that's amazing that we have come to this place where we're very much looking at it from an aesthetic point of view. But I do think we need to kind of merge the two. We need to think about the practical aspect of it as well as the aesthetic, because practical is what really helps you sleep. And the aesthetic is really what helps you truly set yourself up to do that well. Things like having a tech-free bedroom. I am a tech-free person. At bedtime, I do not bring my phone into the bedroom. If I wake up in the night, there is no way that I would ever grab my phone in the middle of the night. That's just not, I don't allow that to happen. I'm very guarded on that. I believe that no matter where in the world you live, if you're using your home as a tool, then you can pick and choose what you'd like to adopt based on the outcome you're wanting. From a design perspective, the bedroom should be organized. It should be thought through stylistically. But even though these spaces, they're not hard working rooms like a kitchen would be, and you don't spend as much waking hours there, they really do carry the same impact. And you actually spend more time in your bedroom than any other place. And what we know is that just because we are not consciously aware of our surroundings while we sleep, our senses are still working. They're just filtering the information. So they're responding still to sound and light and smell and touch. For instance, if you're uncomfortable in the night, you will turn over and move to a different spot. And so the way your bedroom is set up aesthetically affects the lead up to sleep and the colors you see as you wind down, the way your bedding feels on your skin at night, how it regulates your temperature, what your eyes engage with too as you are about to fall asleep, how organized the room feels. There's some studies that suggest specific sounds and scents can influence our dreams or even be incorporated into them. So smells really do have an impact, not only while we dream potentially, but also as we get ready for bed and during sleep, because they can affect the quality of sleep. Jasmine has been linked to improved duration and quality. Lavender, of course, is known for relaxation. There's lavender scented pillow mists and all of those amazing things. But scent can also affect us negatively. If there's a poor odor, it can disrupt our sleep and it can actually degrade the quality of sleep. Poor odor can come from pollutants and muskiness. If there's not enough fresh air in the room, if there's any sort of poor odor to the space, it can impact us in negative ways. And the other thing is sound. Noise can actually disrupt our sleep, especially if it's an unfamiliar sound, because if it's a familiar sound, we actually can get used to it and we will sort of tune it out more or less while we sleep. It's not going to disrupt our sleep too much, but if it's an unfamiliar sound, it could potentially stir you or wake you completely. I know a lot of people listen to brown noise and white noise and all of those things. And I personally love having a fan on at night just because I love just that yeah, it's just that little bit of noise that helps. Anyway, but those are sorts of things that you can utilize to sort of help even out the sound. And then another thing is light. Light affects our circadian rhythm. So if there is light, it actually activates our cells that influence our sleep-wake cycles and our hormones like melatonin and cortisol. So you've probably heard this a million times, but blue light, you don't want to be looking at a screen too close to bedtime or during the night. But blue light can actually penetrate the eyelids during sleep as well. It's definitely not as significant as when your eyes are open, but it can impact your sleep. And especially if you're somebody who sleeps with your eyes a little bit open, which is fairly common, then you've got to take that into consideration too, because obviously more light is going to make it into your eye if your eyelids are slightly open. And the other thing is touch, like the tactile sensation. So tactility is one of those things that studies suggest that the texture and the softness of a material can actually influence how cozy and relaxed you feel. And then there's air quality. So, the levels of CO2 in the room. If the CO2 is higher because the room is poorly ventilated, then that can reduce sleep quality. So sleep with your windows open is always a good thing. And we will talk about that soon because there's a country that just does that very well. But yeah, air quality is impacted. So your exposure to pollutants as well. If there's any pollutants in the air, another reason to sleep with your windows open. Of course, if the outdoor air is good quality, right? You don't want to, if there's heavy pollutants outside, you don't want to be opening your window at night. And then the other thing is temperature, because cooler bedroom temperatures are said to be better for melatonin production and sleep efficiency. So temperature is an amazing thing. Actually, really, it's important to sleep with a little bit of a cooler bedroom. And there's actually quite a few countries that do that, which is great. It's amazing. Even while we sleep, our bedrooms shape our brain states and emotional well-being. And if you set your bed and your bedroom routine up right, then it can have really positive effects. I mean, you already know this, right? I mean, before even diving into what we just spoke about, you know it. You know when you're dialed, when your routine is solid. You just did a deep clean, you washed your bedding, the windows are open, it's a great temperature. Everything feels fresh and tidy. I mean, it is so good. It's so good. And you know it. You've had that, I'm sure. When I do a deep clean, and everything feels fresh. I do our bedding, I dust, I vacuum, I just add a few small touches to the space, maybe some flowers. If I just tweak things in the space, even just a small tweak, it just feels amazing. The way that I respond to my bedroom is different when I walk into the space, when I get ready for bed. It's just a more enjoyable place to be. And I think that it makes me feel when I'm going to bed like it's set. I feel like it affects my sleep, and I also feel like it affects how I wake up in the morning and the start of my day, which is really important as well. And I love that even a small tweak allows me to see it with fresh eyes. So I get to do a little edit. I get to evaluate whether there's anything in the space that isn't working or that might need to change. And that can be aesthetically. Maybe it's time to switch the art or hang a mirror or do whatever. But it just allows for that opportunity because you've kind of cleared away the clutter, you've cleared away the visual noise, and you're able to just see the space and either appreciate it or evaluate it and tweak it slightly. Okay. So now I'm going to break down some bed making and bed routine practices in other countries. So I've chose the 6 countries that I think kind of have really interesting little routines. And anyway, and trust me, there was a lot more than 6 that I could have done. So maybe I'll have to do another episode on this. But the countries are Japan, Germany, Sweden, France, North America, and the UK. So let's start with Japan. So in Japan, I am mildly obsessed with this right now, actually. But the bed style in Japan, they have like a futon. And the futon it's a Japanese style futon. It's basically like a very thick kind of mattress, if you will, different than a North American mattress, but like a mattress on the floor, which sits on tatami mats. And it's kind of stored away during the day. There's no frame. It's literally just like a big pillow, a thick, wonderful looking pillow on the floor. I love this. I think that it's just, I don't know, this style of sleep just kind of got my brain going. I was thinking about how I could utilize this look in a way in North America. So kind of meld the two, because I personally love when I walk into my room and I see my bed, it's at the right height to really see it. I like it's at a nice height to climb in and out of, all of those things. So I really like that. But so I'm kind of thinking, how can I bring the two together in some way? Anyway, it's just a really neat, simplistic way to sleep. And there's something to it that I really like. And not just that, but it's also said to be very good for maintaining spinal alignment, because it's obviously, it's just a mattress on the floor, basically. And the mattress is quite firm. So it's a good, healthy way to sleep. The other thing in Japan is the rituals for bedtime. There's evening baths. It's a very quiet space. There is no visual clutter. It's very, very minimalist. And so I think that at bedtime would probably be a wonderful experience. And then how they shop for bedding, like what they prioritize, natural materials like cotton. They look for craftsmanship and simplicity and long-term use. So things can be passed down or custom made. So I imagine I was looking at a Japanese online store, and I was looking at these mattresses, these futons, and I mean, they just look like such beautiful quality. Anyway, so obviously that is something that in Japan, people prioritize how it's made. So the craftsmanship there. And then the next one is Germany. And the bed style in Germany, how they like to sleep, is they actually have two single duvets on a shared bed, and there's no top sheet, and it's a fairly firm mattress. And there's the rituals in Germany is, I hope that I'm going to pronounce this right, but it's called lüften, which means airing out. So they really open their windows, so they sleep with a cooler bedroom. They have minimal decor in their rooms, but I love that they air out their spaces and they keep their temperature cool at night. And they do this, from what I read, all year round. And that they actually have that term for it. And how do they shop in Germany for bedding is they focus on durability and comfort, quality, craftsmanship, breathable materials, and local brands are preferred. So they would rather buy a German company. And then the next country is Scandinavia. And the bed style is like two duvet, so similar to in Germany. Low frames, muted linens, and no top sheet. I mean, you probably know the Scandinavian design aesthetic, the Scandi design, right? It's all very minimalist. It's wood. It has a very, very tonal look to things. So the rituals are sort of dim lighting, candles, Hygge, and you've heard that term, which is all about creating cozy comfort, winding down. So how do they shop? Well, they value linen and wool and eco certifications. Form follows function. They really believe in how it looks, the beauty of their beds, and again, really neutral palettes and simplicity in tones. The next one is France. The bed style in France is, they have their linen sheets, their duvet. Sometimes they have a top sheet, not always, but it's very like understated elegance, right? I mean, when you think French bedding, it it feels a little bit more elegant and refined, more tufting bed skirts. You'll see a lot more antique beds, which I think there's a romance to the style that I think is quite beautiful. And their rituals are definitely scent. They use things like linen sprays. And at night, they might read or have wine with soft lighting. And how do they shop? Well, they seek tactile luxury. So how the thread feel over, say, thread count. And they really do prioritize aesthetics, quality fabric, and heritage brands. So things that are made in France. And now North America, the bed style is very plush, layered beds with the top sheet and a duvet, throws, lots of pillows. That's actually something that I find sort of funny because in North America, we do tend to do things are bigger and just more. So, it doesn't surprise me that, we're one of the countries that tends to do a lot of pillows, a lot of toss cushions. Anyway, and we do the box spring and the mattress combo, which is standard. That's not always the case in other countries. They don't have a box spring. And, we have typically just one duvet instead of having two duvets on the bed. And the rituals are things like scented candles, reading, just winding down, TV watching. Unfortunately, although that was I got to say something that did come up in other countries as well, TV watching or being on a screen, which isn't so good. It just doesn't give you the picture of a good sleep. But in North America, how do they shop? Well, brand is an important thing. If they recognize that the brand quality, so they'll look for softness and high thread count, and that's actually something. If you're someone who does look for high thread count, you want to be a little cautious when you're looking for sheets focusing on thread count, because manufacturers can actually inflate those numbers, so they're not always accurate. So you want to look for fiber quality rather than thread count. So the quality and the weave is more important or more of an accurate measure of quality. So you want to look for some keywords, which would be long staple, which is the length of the thread. You look for Egyptian cotton, supima. Anyway, those are a few things that you can look for to make sure you're getting a good quality. Because I actually years ago bought a set of sheets because of the thread count. And not to mention, in hindsight, the price was really, really good. So that should have been an indication in terms of quality, because it was a steal. And I bought them and they just wore away. They literally, I don't even think I had them for a year, and they just started ripping. So just be careful with that. You don't want to spend money on something thinking you're getting good quality when really you're not. So the last country is the UK. And, in the UK, their bed style is they'll use both a duvet and a top sheet. They do, prefer 2 pillows per person. And they, do seasonal rotation of bedding. So they'll have heavier bedding for the winter and lighter for the summer. And their rituals, they have a bit of a habit around making the bed properly, crisp and tucked and all of those things. And they like their bedtime tea. Reading before bed, opening the windows and airing the room out is also a common ritual. Their, how they shop, well, thread count and fabric feel matter, but also durability. So they will look for how durable the fabric is. And they have a preference for natural tones, fitted sheets. So now I just want to go through some design tips that you can borrow, you can snag from other countries. If you want to change it up and you want to try something else, do it. Don't get stuck on what you're used to. If culturally you are used to making a bed a certain way, or styling your bed a certain way, or your bed being a certain height and all of those things, just because that's what you're used to does not mean that serves you in the best way that you need. So look elsewhere and get inspired by how other people in other countries do the things and get excited to try it. And you can pick and choose what ones might work for you based on ways you want to improve. So if you want to improve your nighttime routine, if you want to improve your quality of sleep, if you want to improve, your temperature at night, whatever it is, just pick and choose which ones work for you. So here's a few things that you could try. So from Japan, try a minimal reset. So a futon on the floor. Like I said, this is, I think, my new obsession. I'm going to do a deep dive into this and really think on a design perspective how I can, just have fun with that. And then, things like an evening bath, right? Because an evening bath is going to lower body temperature and improve your sleep. And from Germany, looking to do 2 duvets. I have actually spoke to people who from Germany and who have visited Germany, and they do say that 2 duvets on the bed is amazing. So, if you're someone who's living in North America and you want to try doing something like this, it could increase the quality of sleep, if you're a couple. And then another thing in Germany is to crack your windows. They crack their windows year round. So try that to improve, your CO2 levels and get that temperature down. And then in Sweden, you could snag how they love their linen bedding, soft lighting, and in a cool room. It's breathable, it's calming, and it's circadian friendly. From France, you could snag their scent and their elegance. So pillow sprays, low lighting, that romantic sort of style. And, it just engages the senses and it reduces stress with the scents. In North America, a plush bed, you could snag the amount of toss cushions or pillows that are used. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but, in North America, they also use blackout curtains, which I think is amazing. I have them in our room. So that's a good thing if you're trying to control the light levels at night. Sleep masks are also really good for that. But yeah, so this, supports melatonin, deep rest. So now I want to quickly share just some styling tips. So the first thing is to anchor the bed with a textured, foot of the bed layer. So a woven blanket or a throw, folded or just draped at the end of the bed. And why is this impactful? Well, it creates visual weight at the bottom of the bed, which grounds the eye and it just grounds the space. So it balances the proportion on the bed. If you can envision the top of the bed has lots of pillows and you've got your duvet folded down with the sheet and you've got your headboard, that's visual weight. So then at the foot of the bed, you want to kind of anchor it and balance that. So that's going to help with that. It's a nice composition as well when you're looking at a bed. It also can introduce contrast and texture, which is just going to give that feeling of coziness and comfort. The next thing is when you're choosing the pillow insert size, and this is the case actually for any pillow, whether this is like a sofa cushion or anything, but you want to make sure that your inserts are one size larger than the covers. So, and that's just so that it fills that cushion, like the pillow cover properly, right? You want it to plump it up. So what you want to have is, if you've got like a square pillow that's 20-inch by 20-inch covers, you want to use an insert that's bigger than the cover side. So you could go with a 21 by 21 or a 22 by 22. And that just depends on how much fullness you want that cushion to have. The next thing is to use a flat sheet or coverlet as like a visible styling layer. So you can imagine, if you tuck a crisp white sheet or a lightweight quilt between the fitted sheet and your duvet, and then you fold your duvet and you see this lightweight quilt. You've folded that back over top of the duvet. And this just kind of gives it a really polished boutique hotel kind of vibe. And not to mention, it's nice to have like a lightweight quilt to sleep with at night, because if you're trying to keep that temperature lower, then having a lightweight quilt which still has some weight to it, which is comfortable, is going to be good in that way too. And then the next thing is your nightstands need to be the right height for your mattress. So you want them to be either at the height or just above mattress height. And that just helps with just a sense of balance and cohesion in the room. And it's also for function as well. As you're sitting in your mattress, if you're putting things down or you're grabbing things, it helps with light levels. If you've got lamps on either side, so where the light hits on your bed. I've seen many times where, the bedside tables are really, really tall, too tall for the bed, or really, really low. And those need to be balanced and they need to be cohesive. Okay, so before I get into the key takeaways, I just want to mention a couple things. And the first thing is your bedroom should not be a dumping ground. I am guilty of this as well. This is where often the laundry ends up before you put it away. I don't know. It just can become that room, the catch-all for a lot of things. So, but our bedroom is so impactful. It really does impact our sleep, our rest. So just make sure that you really try to stop it from being a dumping ground and really create those room rules and the intention around just keeping that room for what it is and guarding that space and allowing it to benefit you in the ways that you need it to. The next thing is that light matters. So when we talk about light levels at night and we say, going with warm bulbs, it's really important to recognize that not all warm light is equal. So warm toned bulbs can feel calming, but they really, in order for them to have a physiological impact on our circadian rhythms, they have to be spectrally optimized because that will reduce the amount of blue light that's in the bulb. So just be mindful of that. So if you're really wanting to create a space that helps your circadian rhythms, then you have to be mindful of the type of warm lighting that you're using. And the next thing is, and this isn't like a formal neuroaesthetics element, but it's just sort of a Pero principle and my personal principle is just removing screens and digital clutter because you want to train your brain to associate your bedroom with rest and not stimulation. So it's more of a design decision with a behavioral payoff, okay? So just make sure that you really do treat your bedroom as a space that's low tech, if not no tech. So use your bed, set it up as a tool, use it to create what you need, which is rest, order, calm, all of the things. Okay, so now let's get into the key takeaways. And I'm just going to do a really quick recap because I think we've gone over today. Anyway, so our beds have always carried meaning. In history, they showed status, from layered feather mattresses to simple sacks of straw. And even the canopy was there for warmth and privacy, not just decoration. Different cultures still shape sleep in inspiring ways. Japan teaches us simplicity with futons and minimalism. Germany gives us the 2 duvet trick and fresh air every night. Scandinavia leans into linen and cozy candlelight. France adds elegance and scent. North America loves plush layers and blackout curtains, and the UK keeps it crisp with proper bed making and even a bedtime tea. What ties all this together is that our senses are always at work, even while we sleep. Smell, sound, touch, light, air quality, and temperature all influence how deeply we rest. Lavender and jasmine can calm us. Fresh air and cooler rooms improve sleep, and textures really do affect how cozy we feel. And when it comes to styling, a few small tweaks go a long way. Ground the bed with a throw, bet your inserts, fold back your bedding for a polished look, and keep nightstands in balance with the mattress. Above all, Protect your bedroom. Don't let it become a dumping ground. Choose lighting that truly supports your rhythms and keep the space as low tech as possible so it works for what you need most. Our bedrooms are more than just a place to sleep. They shape how we rest, how we dream, and even how we wake up in the morning. I hope this episode gave you ideas you can put into practice tonight. Even one small change, like opening a window, adding a throw, or removing your phone from the room, can shift the way you sleep and how you feel when you wake up. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast so you don't miss what's next, and share it with a friend who could use some inspiration in their home. You can also head over to my website, yourpero.com, to dive deeper into the design and wellness tools I talk about here. And don't miss your next stop in Home by Country. We'll move from the bedroom to the table with how the world dines. We'll explore dining traditions around the globe and what they can teach us about connection, ritual, and design. Until then, take action, share this episode, and start creating the kind of home that helps you live better every single day. Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is to follow along and share it with someone who'd love it too. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can become one of our Better Living backers. It's a small monthly contribution that helps keep the show going. And as a thank you, I'll send you a personal note along with a 15% discount for the Create Space course when it launches. You can find the support the show link right in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for creating space with me.